One night, while pondering over all this, I had a dream. It was a vivid and surreal experience, unlike anything I had ever experienced before. In my dream, I found myself in a different place, a place of astonishing beauty and wonder. It's hard to explain, but the world I saw was like nothing I had ever seen before. It was like stepping into one of the old books I found on a riverbank, filled with tales of far-off lands and magical realms. There were blue rivers that sparkled in the sun, surrounded by lush green forests teeming with life. The air was fresh and clean, free from the suffocating smog and dust that choked the streets of Survive. In my dream, I was flying through this incredible world in some kind of drone. It was a remarkable machine, sleek and futuristic, yet somehow more elegant and refined than anything I had ever seen in the wasteland. Unlike the drones we have here, it was quiet and steady, gliding effortlessly through the sky with a sense of grace and ease. As I soared over towering skyscrapers and gleaming cities, I felt a sense of wonder and amazement. It was like stepping into a world of pure imagination, a world where anything was possible. For a brief moment, I forgot about the bleak reality of my existence and allowed myself to be swept away by the beauty of this dream world. I couldn't help but marvel at the drone I was flying. It was a far cry from the drones I had seen used in battles, with their sharp edges and menacing weaponry. Instead, this drone was sleek and modern, designed for transporting people from place to place. As I glided through the air, I spotted a girl who looked just like me, sitting inside the drone and gazing down at the city below. She had the same brown eyes, blonde hair, and bright skin as me, but she wore a beautiful black frock that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. A brief moment, our eyes met, and I felt a jolt of recognition. Who was this girl? I tried to speak to her, but my voice was lost in the wind. Suddenly, the drone began to sputter and shake, and I realized with horror that drone was losing control. It tried to regain its balance, but it was too late. The drone plummeted to the ground, crashing with a deafening roar. In an instant, I was jolted awake, my heart pounding in my chest. I was covered in a cold sweat, and I could still hear the sound of screams ringing in my ears. It was a terrifying experience, but it left me with a burning desire to discover the truth about the girl in my dream and the world beyond the Great Wall. I felt a strong urge to uncover the truth about my dream and the world beyond the Great Wall. The thought consumed me, and I knew I had to act. So, I decided to embark on a journey to seek out the author of the book about the Survive land, even though he had long since passed away. As I trekked through the barren wasteland, I was struck by the desolation of the world around me. The sky was a deep shade of red, and the scorching sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the only sounds were the distant cries of scavengers and the rustling of dried leaves. But I pressed on, determined to find the son of the author who still resided in the area. After many long hours of walking, I finally arrived. Upon arriving at the son's home, a crashed airplane that was now a dilapidated shack, I approached the door with caution. My eyes were immediately drawn to the rusted metal of the plane's twisted wings, now serving as makeshift walls. As I knocked on the door, my ears were filled with the creaking and groaning of the plane's metal frame. Suddenly, the door opened, and I was met with the sight of a man holding a machine gun, its metallic sheen glinting in the dim light. He quickly lowered the weapon upon seeing me, his weathered face showing a mixture of surprise and suspicion, a strong and tall man in his 30s with a thick, short beard and little hair on the top of his head. "I've never heard someone knocking on my door before," he said, surprised. "I've read that it's customary to knock on doors in Survive land," I replied. "I came here to talk to you." As we talked, I could see the man's face etched with lines of worry and sadness, a reflection of the harsh realities of life in Believer's Land. The room was dimly lit, with only a flickering lantern providing a warm glow. Suddenly, we heard a loud knocking on the door, jolting us both. I hurried to the door and opened it to reveal a girl standing outside, her face covered in grime and dirt, but her bright blue eyes shining through the filth. She looked exactly like the girl in my dream, but the reality was far from the pristine image I had imagined. Nonetheless, we exchanged warm greetings, and the man invited her in to join our conversation about his father's books. The girl then turned to me and smiled, the first genuine smile I had ever seen. I tried to smile back, but my attempt was likely clumsy. The man then introduced himself as Carlson Jr. He had lived in the crashed airplane since the day he was born. The airplane was lodged between two towering cliffs, and its metallic frame was covered in rust. The interior was dimly lit by the flickering light of oil lamps, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The man's father was a close friend of the mayor of Survive Land, and they used to spend many afternoons discussing books and politics. However, their friendship was shattered when the mayor's two children were killed by one of mayor's close friends. In response, the mayor chased away all his friends from Survive Land, leaving the Carlsons' father to seek refuge in the crashed airplane with his family. Carlson's father's passion for Survive Land lived on even after his death. Despite being forced to leave, he continued to write about the land and its people, hoping to inspire change. His books were treasured by some, but despised by the believers who saw them as a threat to their rule. In a brutal act of violence, they took the life of Carlson's father and left his infant son to perish. But fate had other plans. An old woman, with eyes as bright as the stars, stumbled upon the scene and took the abandoned child under her wing. She raised him as her own, teaching him the ways of the land and instilling in him a love for knowledge and exploration. I had a huge question, but before I could ask, the girl beat me to it. She asked, "You have a name?" "Of course, I have one," he replied. "I'm not one of those savage believers who killed my father in cold blood. Don't you two have names?" The girl shook her head, indicating that she didn't have one. I said, "I like having a name, but there is no one to call me by it anyway." "I will," the girl said with a smile. The man, with a deep furrowed brow, examined us carefully before posing a question that seemed to carry more weight than its simplicity suggested. His eyes squinted as he scrutinized us, his gaze flickering back and forth between our faces. He finally broke the silence. "How old are you two?" We responded in unison. "We're both 14. The man paused and began counting his fingers slowly, his face contorted in deep concentration. After a moment, he stopped, his expression inscrutable, and remained silent. Suddenly, he asked, "Do you two want names?" "I would love to." I answered eagerly, but the girl didn't seem too enthusiastic about the idea. "If those believers find out, they'll kill us," she protested. "There's no way they'll find out." "It's our little secret," I said, smiling for the first time, I think. "Carlson seems to have picked names already," the man said. "Jake. I like it," I exclaimed. "And yes, Ava is perfect for you. Ava is a cool name for me." "I like it." "Thanks," the girl said with a smile. "Wow, you two know manners very well." "You definitely belong on survival land," the man said, impressed with our behavior. "I wish I could help you go there, but their defense systems are on high alert after what happened to the mayor's kids." "You're the kindest man we've met," the girl exclaimed, and the man smiled. Then he asked us, "So why did you come to me in the first place?" "I had a dream," we both said at the same time, surprising ourselves and Carlson too. "You had a dream too? What did you see?" Ava asked me. As I recounted every detail of my dream, I noticed the girl's eyes widening in disbelief, her mouth slightly agape. The room was silent except for the sound of my voice, and I couldn't help but feel foolish for sharing such an absurd experience. "You had the same dream I had?" she exclaimed. "What?" I stared at her in disbelief. Then Carlson showed us some photos of a girl and a boy we had seen in our dreams. It was an exact match. "How was that possible?" He asked us, "Are you sure you saw these kids?" "Yes," we both replied. He looked directly into our eyes and stayed staring at them for a few seconds. "Kids, you're not going to believe this, but..." As Carlson spoke, there was a sudden deafening explosion that shook the ground beneath our feet. I could hear the sound of bullets whizzing past my ears as the believers unleashed a violent attack on us. Flames erupted from every direction, engulfing everything in their path. I stumbled and fell to the ground, my eyes glued to Carlson, who was frantically pressing a red button on a nearby screen. I turned to look for Ava, but the chaos was too much to take in. Smoke filled the air, and the flames danced all around me, making it difficult to see. I felt a sharp pain shoot up my leg, and I collapsed onto the ground, powerless to move. Fear took over me as I watched Carlson get shot and fall to the ground beside me. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before my eyes. Everything went blurry as the world around me turned black. In my last moments of consciousness, I could hear Ava's piercing scream ringing in my ears. The last thing I remembered was the overwhelming feeling of anger, sadness, and terror all at once.